Hi everyone. So I want to talk about something that you might have thought about, and if you generally like my videos, I think you'll like the subject too. Now, that subject is a little bit of how the world works, and it's about skills. So I'm going to start off, I'm not going to get too political here. There is an idea that a lot of people agree with right now that everyone should be able to make a living wage regardless of what you're doing. Now, I don't actually know where I fall in this debate. I have different feelings on it at different times, and I haven't taken a stance. But I want to go into this. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I worked minimum wage jobs. I'm talking Burger King, I'm talking, McDonald's, not stuff that paid well. I worked at a pet store. It was a good job, but it doesn't pay well enough for you to really live off of it. Now, this whole time, I was kind of hoping that a Bernie Sanders type would come along, raise the minimum wage, and make it to where I could afford my own place on a job like that. That didn't happen. So, there is a part of me that when I hear people arguing for it now, I'm like, oh, now you're gonna give it, huh? Now that I did all this work to get out of that. So, my point is not that. And again, I don't really know which way we should go with this politically. My point is this. The way that the world works is supply and demand. And this is not just true in America. This is true pretty much everywhere to a degree. So there are things that people do, and there is a demand for that thing to be done. So the reason a job like McDonald's doesn't pay well is because that skill is not in high demand. It's something that McDonald's, the company, perceives they can pretty much find anyone to do it if they need to. And if you're upset with your pay and you leave, they could easily find someone to do the same thing that would be okay accepting the wage that they pay. And this seems to work in practicality. McDonald's, as far as I can tell, isn't suffering from any shortage of staff. And that is because they were correct in that assumption, or in that deduction perhaps, that they actually could find somebody that will accept that rate of pay when people are unhappy with it. I mean, with companies like McDonald's, this happens all the time, where they have college students that leave to go do something else and they find someone else to fill their shoes. So I do a lot of videos on IT or technology type jobs. This is something that there tends to be a higher demand for. And the reason for that is simple. It's something that not everyone can do. In fact, when it comes to tech today, it's very specialized. So it may be quite difficult to actually find someone that can do these things. Now, there are the issues of outsourcing, and I do kind of want to get into that a little bit later. But first, I am not saying that everyone needs to go to college and that's your key to a good life. It is certainly one path, but I had a new air conditioner installed in my house just a few weeks ago. Why did I pay someone else to do that? Well, that's simple. I can't do it. I can't do it myself. And why do companies pay people a decent amount of money to do this kind of thing? Well, because you can't just pull any person off the street and get them, teach them to install air conditioners. It's not that easy. There's a lot more to it. So it requires, training, basically, some kind of training. There is a barrier to entry, which is not there unnecessarily. It's just, it takes more skill to do that. Now, the amount of training it takes to do something and the amount of money you make doing it, they're not, they do not map 100%. Because there are some things that are just done less commonly, and maybe the barrier of entry, the amount of training you need, isn't super, super high, but not that many people have done it. So that gives you an in if you're doing that thing. And finding that thing, that's your challenge if you want to try to go that route, to find kind of a niche skill. But there was also, when I bought this house, I had issues with it, of course, like when you buy any house. One was that I was messing with the water inlet for a toilet. And I think I was just trying to fix the tank on the toilet was overflowing a little bit. And I know how to fix that because I've done it before. But I figured I'd shut the water off first before I put my hands in there. And when I did, it turned out the water source valve was very old and it started leaking. So this is something I looked up on YouTube, and I could potentially do it myself, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to risk it. Not in a new house, I just didn't want to. So I called a handyman, and I paid that handyman $120 for, less than an hour's worth of his time. So this person, and I don't actually know, but may not have a college degree, right? He might not have any degree. He's just good at working on this kind of stuff. And that pays $120 for under an hour. Of course, he drove out here, but still, that's that you're making good money there. And that's kind of something I'm saying, that don't think you have to go to college to live a decent life, because you don't. There are a lot of skills out there that you can do that do not require a college degree. Now, another thing I want to talk about with things like outsourcing is, and another one I'll add in there, is automation. It used to be that a lot of jobs you didn't need a college education for, and there were definitely more skilled jobs out there that had a lower barrier of entry. The issue is people like me, if I'm being perfectly frank. People who have automated those jobs, and now a computer can do it, so we don't need a person to do it. Something like a bookkeeper, which back in the day, that was a perfectly legitimate route to go. Today, most of the time, a computer can keep the books. A computer can save information. There are things that have more or less skills that you could have gained and had meaningful employment have gone away because of people like me. Sorry, this is the world. So one challenge you have if you are going to target a higher demand skill is trying to make sure it's not something that's going to be automated away in the future. And this can be quite a challenge, especially if you're not into tech, just trying to say, well, what do I think a computer could do? If it involves physically moving things around, likely a computer's not going to take it unless it's very methodically moving things around, like Amazon Warehouse, where that can be automated with robots. So something where you're going to go into someone's house, we're probably not going to have a robot that can do that. If you're installing cabinetry, we're probably not going to have a cabinet installer robot that shows up in a truck at your house, gets out as a robot, goes in and installs the cabinet in the exact place you want it in your house. Not likely to happen anytime soon. Now there's some harder ones. What about like truck driver? That seems like something that we're not going to have a computer doing, but as we've seen, it very well possibly could go in that direction. So that is your challenge in finding a good skill to pursue, because yes, it would be, I guess I'm mostly talking to younger people here, but you would not want to pursue a skill set and then, in your mid-40s, have it be automated. That would put you in a difficult position in life. So you do want to try to find something that is not likely to be automated. But if you're thinking about that, don't get too whimsical about what can and can't be automated. I'll give you some examples that might have been hard to think of. Things like movie theaters, right? You might think running a movie theater or being in that business to some degree in a higher demand area, which most employees, if you're the guy making the popcorn, probably not a high demand skill. But there are some areas that you would think could be decent, but maybe not, because now we can stream the movie to our home and we don't need any of that. So some of it is difficult to predict. But my main point is this, that a lot of people say, we need to pay everyone a living wage. Other people say, let the free market decide, let the in-demandness of the skill decide who gets paid what. Now, up until now, and very I'd say likely into the future, that is going to be the way things are. That if you are getting paid a low wage and you want to be paid a higher wage, I am not saying like don't fight for what you want politically, but I think you're probably better off trying to find a skill set, and there are many, that you can pursue. Let me give you some more examples. Nursing is a big thing. We have a lot of people in the baby boomer generation that are getting older. You're probably not going to have a robot anytime soon that can be a nurse, and even if you could do that, I don't think a lot of people would prefer it. So nursing is a great route, and some of it needs some college, but normally it's not like the whole 4-year degree. Maybe I'll do some research and do a video on nursing itself. You know, there's a lot of excellent ways to go as far as that skill set, and I'm trying to think of a few that, you know, are not a whole 4-year degree away, and I think I've named a few, you know, but there's another way to look at it that gets you not away from automation, it gets you away from outsourcing, because this is something that software developers have had issues with. That why is someone going to hire me when they can hire someone from a country like India and pay a lot less? Well, sometimes that will happen, that they will hire remote workers to do that. A big reason they might not is because software is their product. This is like what they make, and they cannot afford to skimp on it at all. Not saying that Indian labor is bad, but if I can't meet you in the hallway and talk to you about something in person, that is not as good as if I could. So, you know, that's something to consider with that. But a bigger thing is there are some sectors that can't hire people, you know, from foreign countries, basically. So if you want to work for the US government, there's a very good chance, especially if it is in something that we consider security intensive is probably not, you know, it's something we need to consider security with, right? We're probably going to require that you be an American citizen to do that. So there are little niches within niches that you can find and apply yourself in what you are and what you're good at. Now, the challenge to this is figuring out, well, what do you want to do? Well, I'd recommend something that you like, because it's not like everyone has to do something that they like. But if you don't like it, your chances of being able to build that skill set are lower, right? They are. Now, you might not know what you like, in which case you have to explore things. And one of the best ways to do that is meet somebody that is doing well for a living, figure out what they do and talk to them about it. See if they will, in a way, mentor you on it, or at least just, you know, tell you about their day. You have to eventually find something, though, because what I can say is today working a minimum wage job is not a good way to go to support yourself. And yes, in some areas especially, you might be able to make enough to rent a room, and that is, you know, enough to survive. And you might even be, you know, okay doing that. But think long term. If you're going to work at a company and they're going to pay you minimum wage, and maybe they'll bump it up a little bit over time, they're not going to give you health insurance. What's going to happen when you get older? I mean, you're going to have health problems. I think everyone has health problems. How are you going to afford to go to the doctor? What if you have to go to the hospital? Who's going to pay that bill? So there's a lot to take into account, but I can say this: you don't want to work a minimum wage job of that skill set long term, because it's going to have consequences. And can you really see yourself, you know, making just enough to rent a room when you're, you know, 45, 50? I couldn't. You know, I decided I have to do something about this. After, you know, wanting the minimum wage raised, wanting equality for a long time, I finally decided I'm going to have to make my own equality. If I want to be able to have the things I want to have, if I want to be able to have, you know, a place to call my own at all, a studio apartment, I'm going to have to make that happen. You know, I'm not going to be able to just politically rally for it and expect it. So I did. And I went to college, I got my IT degree, and now I'm where I am today. I do software development, you know, in an IT department. And it's good. You know, it's an in-demand skill. I'm a ServiceNow developer. There are not that many people out there that know how to do that, especially certain skills I've figured out. There aren't that many people that have figured out how to do what I figured out how to do. And the thing that's great about it is I love doing it a lot more than I like making hamburgers at McDonald's, and even more than I liked working at the pet store, even though I love animals. It's just something I have a passion for. So I'm getting paid more to do something I like to do more, and the biggest difference is that not as many other people know how to do it. Nobody cares how much fun it is to me. Well, maybe some people do a little. But the big thing is that I know how to do it and other people don't know how to do it. So they'll pay me more to work for them because, truth is, this is just how it works. If they were to pay me, if they say, hey, we're going to pay you McDonald's wages, I'd be like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go somewhere else. So that's my video on skills. I'm not trying to down any political movement, by the way. I'll be upfront. I don't know how to run the world. That is not my degree. That is not what I do. I don't think the people that run the world really know how to. I think that's why we vote. Whatever you think should happen, that is your right to feel that way. And I am just talking about the way that the world is today. So, take it for what it is. So anyway, if you like this video, give me a like. If you didn't like it, give me a dislike, but especially with something like this, if you give me a dislike, I'd really appreciate it. If you give me your point of view on this, I really would. Beyond that, subscribe to this channel and have a good night.